This is Jennifer Gore with St. George Episcopal Church in the Villages, Florida. Today I'm interviewing the Reverend Canon Bill Squire, who after a successful military career has served in many capacities in the Episcopal Church. With a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in administration of justice, Lieutenant Colonel Squire retired from a long career in the Army. Then he attended seminary, where he obtained a Master of Divinity and became an ordained Episcopal priest. Canon Bill's life of dedication to serving our country and our church continue to be a blessing to all who know him. Canon Bill, after your retirement, you earned a Master of Divinity degree and entered seminary. Tell us a little bit about the transition from military life to priesthood.
Well, I actually drove 2 hours from Fort Campbell, Kentucky to Sewanee, Tennessee, staying basically in the same area. And it was not an unusual transition. In fact, in the Church of England, it is not unusual for military officers that are posted, for instance, in India. Once they retire, they get ordained and go back as a chaplain. So that in the seminary that I attended, it was not unusual to find other people that had military careers, either retired or shorter careers, and then went to seminary. So the transition was relatively easy. And I saw both of them as service, one to the nation and one to God in the church, and so that part of the transition was also pretty easy.
So how does that transition affect your family?
Well, again, first of all, my wife and I had 6 children, and we moved a lot, probably about 20 times with the family. But by the time I went to seminary, we were down to 2. 4 had already left the home and either were at college or working. And in fact, the 2 that came with us, one was of a college age and did go to college soon after our arrival in Sewanee. The other was in high school and went to high school at Sewanee. They had moved so much in the past, it was easy for them. It was just different in that I no longer was in uniform.
Yeah. Oh, it's got to be the life of a military family is sacrificed in more than one way, but your family did it, huh? So you've served at a lot of churches. You have served in Haiti, and I want to hear a little bit about your experiences in Haiti, what brought you there, and what's going on there now.
Well, I was canon of the ordinary in the Episcopal Diocese of East Tennessee for a number of years, and while there, the bishop sent me to Haiti to have a discussion with the Bishop of Haiti about the continuing companion relationship that the diocese had. And my wife Margaret went with me, and part of my going to seminary was thinking that God would probably use me in some overseas area because of the amount of traveling that we had done in the military. Well, when we arrived in Haiti, we looked at each other and we knew this probably was it. So in fact, that trip was such that we talked about it and prayed about it, and I went back, and literally 2 or 3 days later, I resigned as canon, and then sought to find a way to go to Haiti. So my wife and I explored with the Episcopal Church at the Episcopal Church Center in New York, their missions office, and we both became appointed volunteers for mission for a 3-year period, and we moved to Haiti. While in Haiti, the bishop assigned me to be the coordinator of our partnership program to put in partnership churches and schools in Haiti with churches and schools in the United States and Canada and North America. And I also oversaw a English-speaking congregation. And my wife taught art in an elementary school and in a high school, and she was on the board of directors of the Art Museum in Port-au-Prince, and always made time to be with me on the weekend if I wasn't preaching at and doing the services at the English-speaking congregation. We were out in the provinces at other churches, and we were there at that point for 3 years. We returned thinking that that would be it. As it turns out, it was a number of years later. This was in the mid-1990s. And in 2000, we stayed connected and went to Haiti probably twice a year, or sometimes more. In 2005, I got a call from the Bishop of Haiti, and it was to request, and I said yes, to return to Haiti, and the two of us to return and oversee St. Vincent's Center for Handicapped Children until such time as he could appoint a priest. So I was the interim director of St. Vincent's for about 8 months. Margaret had to leave earlier because the bishop was concerned about our safety. It was a rather chaotic time in Haiti then.
So tell us a little bit about St. Vincent's and the ministry there.
Well, it's a wonderful institution, and St. George here now has a relationship with St. Vincent's as well, and I can speak to that. But St. Vincent's is, in fact, a center for handicapped children, and it is a school, and there are residents there. Now, the residents, many of which have families that they go back to in the summer, but they reside there during the school year, and many are orphaned and are at St. Vincent's all the time. That's their life. It's a wonderful place. There are deaf people, and there are blind people. There are people without limbs. There are some people with mental and psychological issues. But it's just a beautiful place, as you see God in the church at work.
Yeah, what a blessing to those children. And tell us a little bit about the one young lady who is in college at the University of Kansas, my alma mater, because I'm especially fond of that place.
Well, her name is Dimin Cloistan, and I've known her as a child. I have a picture of her, and she has it as well, of me holding her when she was probably 1 year old. Oh. She was, as a girl, she was born without arms. Nobody really knows the reason for that, but in fact that happened. She's an unbelievable young woman, as she was as a young girl. She can do things that some of us can't do, that have arms and hands. She dresses herself. She takes care of herself. She eats by using her feet. She can thread a needle by holding the needle with one foot and the thread with another. She speaks English now, and of course, she did, 2 years ago, get a scholarship to go to the University of Kansas. She is studying psychology in hopes of going back and helping young people in her country with their psychological issues.
That's amazing. Canon Squire, please tell us a little bit about St. George Episcopal Church's participation in the missions in Haiti.
Well, first, when I was on staff here as an associate rector, it was during the time of the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. Once the earthquake happened, I made my call to get a ticket to get to Haiti and see what I could do. I called the then rector, Father Hugh Brumley, and told him that I, of course, like anybody, was allowed to carry $10,000 to another country, and I had planned to do that. And he said that St. George would participate in that. Within an hour, I was standing at the bank with Father Brumley, and I left the bank with $5,000 in cash that St. George contributed. I got the rest of it from parishioners that knew this was happening and from friends and neighbors. So I left here with $10,000 in my shoes. Instead of going directly to Haiti, I did have to go through Dominican Republic, but I did go there for several days, distributed that money to the bishop and other ministries, to include St. Vincent's Center for Handicapped Children and the Sisters of St. Margaret. I returned, and my wife then made up a list of things needed, and parishioners came forward with things, and 2 weeks later my wife and I went back to Haiti with those things. So St. George has been involved for a long time. Now, when Father Kelly came to St. George, he has a passion for mission, both locally and abroad, and so he knew about my involvement in Haiti, so he too got interested in in fact, made 2 trips with me, one with his wife Tish and one with Deacon Nancy Bryson, where they could see the ministry in Haiti and see how they could participate. They now have a partnership with St. Vincent's Center for Handicapped Children, make contributions to that. And there is a Haiti fund here at St. George that people can contribute to help that ministry in Haiti. So St. George has been very involved, and I'm very pleased about that.
Wow. Well, thank you. So you retired to the Villages with your wife of 60 years, Margaret. You and Margaret both served at St. George prior to her passing in 2020. Any experiences about the life you shared together at the Villages?
Well, we loved it, and maybe her more than I. She was avid golfer and very competitive, and so she loved that aspect to it, but also the social aspects of the Villages. She was very involved here at St. George. I was the associate rector for 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, and then again an interim for the year before Father Kelly came. But she was involved with the Women's Guild, with the Daughters of the King, with the Cursillo community. She was, for a while, in the choir. She was a lay Eucharistic minister, and she was here often, and she loved the people of St. George.
Don't we all? Well, thank you, Canon Bill, for your service to God, to our church, to our country, to our parish. And thank you, audience, for participating in St. George Episcopal Spotlight on Parish.